You know what? Sure, why not? I'll step on a wasp's nest. Let's talk about the new Viktor for a bit. Conveniently, on the model viewer, Kata, they still have the old 2011 model of Viktor for us to compare to, which is lovely. So, Viktor mains are, broadly speaking, not super happy with what League of Legends has done to their boy. And it's not hard to see why, because new Viktor just simply isn't old Viktor anymore. Like, this is very much, I mean, not even a Galio level rework, this is a Trundle level rework, where the old character is functionally speaking deleted from the game, and a new character with a similar name and a little bit of thematic overlap is sort of slotted in to take over their place, right? And it's one of those things where, like, if I was a Viktor main, if I was someone who, like, fell in love with this guy, and this character, and this concept, and who he is, and what he's about, yeah, no, I'd be pretty fucking unhappy with the new one, too. Because the new one is very, very, very much not a riff, or a reaction, or an iteration, or a version of the old one. It is not an attempt to modernize or update the old one for like more modern times. It's not an attempt to bring this character forward into the modern state of League of Legends. It is a replacement. It is a full replacement, basically from top to bottom. And that's sort of one of the things that I think is kind of the weakness of the new Viktor design, is that all of the stuff that it retains from the old, especially the arm, the things that it retains from the old design all feel like the weakest parts of the new one, because these are design features that made sense on a decidedly different character, right? This is something I felt even watching Arcane, is that the fucking third arm, the robot arm, the thing, this makes no fucking sense for who this version of the character is. For Viktor, the old Viktor, right? He's a person who's obsessed with augmenting and enhancing the natural capabilities of the human body, right? And fixing and correcting its weaknesses, right? That's his deal, right? So there's a big focus in his character design on the concept of the prosthetic, right? So we have the leg brace that helps him with his leg. We have the artificial arm that he's replaced his real arm with. We have the mechanical robot arm that sits on his shoulder and augments and enhances and supplies his abilities with additional capabilities. That's not this Viktor. This Viktor isn't really about fixing the inherent flaws in the human flesh and so on and so forth. Like, not really. This Viktor is much more about being corrupted by an eldritch cosmic horror power beyond your comprehension. This is about being fed a false vision of reality by something which is sort of beyond what you can handle as a mortal mind, and losing sight of your humanity and being seduced by that vision, right? Like, and Viktor in Arcane takes a lot from Malzahar, basically. Not in the sense that he's exactly the same character, but like a lot of the stuff that happens with Viktor in Arcane is stuff that feels like it's partly lifted from Malzahar's story, rather than being lifted from the story of Viktor as he has existed in the game for, you know, well over 12, 13 years now. And so for me, the third arm, right, the robot arm here feels much more like it's a part of this design out of obligation, right? Because, well, because of Viktor's, his thing is has the robot arm, right? He has the third arm that sits on and shoots the laser bolt in front of him and stuff. So therefore, we have to have the third arm, and not necessarily because it makes any sense, really, for this version of the character. It's kind of the same problem that exists, like, it's the same problem inside of Arcane. It's like, why does he have a third arm? That's like, yeah, they kind of hint, like, they kind of try to set it up in Season 1 with that Viktor does invent the laser arm that sort of cuts through something and nearly singes Heimerdinger's beard or whatever. But it's like, but it's not really an important part of his character. It's not something that's brought up again. It's not something that he's, like, obsessed with trying to create extra limbs for himself so he can do more work. Like, none of that is ever really shown. None of the sort of enhancing the human flesh with additional capabilities kind of thing. That's never really Viktor's story in Arcane. In Arcane, his story is much more about disability. And a particular obsession with fixing and curing himself. And I have some thoughts and opinions about how Viktor's characterization is handled in Arcane. I'm not going to give them here because, again, that's something I want to say for the review. It's just that the third arm, as a component of his character design here, it doesn't feel like a natural outgrowth of the "I have seen the glory of the perfect Arcane, the glorious evolution that will supplant nature, blah, blah, blah." This doesn't really seem to connect with that in any meaningful way. It would make a lot more sense if this was like a floating magical appendage or some embodiment of the Arcane that like hovers behind him and sort of almost like a drone or mind controls him or something. But the fact that it's an arm that's attached to him, that's an enhancement to his body, is weird, because it's also not something that's replicated in Arcane across all of the perfect ascended, like all of the evolved bodies that Viktor is creating, right? Like all of these perfect white identical dolls, right? None of them have extra limbs. That's not a feature that he puts on them. It's not a thing that seems to be like in whatever he imagines like perfect ascended humanity to be. Having an extra third arm on their back clearly isn't part of that vision because none of the dolls have it. So why does he have it if what he's obsessed with is ascension, right? Also, in the context of Arcane, Viktor's thing is his leg. Right, like that's the main physical disability that we see is like the crutches, he has trouble walking, that his leg is damaged, right? Like that's the main thing we see with Viktor is that that's the shape of his disability. And there's a little bit of recognition of that in the character design in that one of the legs clearly is more enhanced than the other. I was like, okay, that's a cool little asymmetry. He never struggles with his arms. He's never like, oh god, I don't have enough hands, or like, oh, my right arm has stopped working, I wish I had. Like, that never comes up as a problem that it would make sense for Viktor to be like, I know what I'll do to fix it. I'll have an extra arm. Like, this is not a thing that seems to address or solve a problem that he has ever really had as a character. It's just, well, Viktor's old design had a third arm, therefore the new one has to have a third arm because we're not going to change his ability kit, so laser. That feels like all it is. And even in Arcane as well, like, the fact that there's a third arm feels like it's just a reference to old Viktor, but it's a reference without a referent, right? Like, it's a reference that doesn't have any content to it, doesn't mean anything that Viktor has a third arm. It's just a thing that's there because it was there on the old one. And that's kind of weak as character design goes. It's actually really weak as character design goes, especially for a show like Arcane, which is otherwise so specific and, like, intentional about how it designs its characters. To have something there that's, like, solely employed as like, oh hey, it's the reference to that thing I remember, like a fucking Pepperidge Farm remembers member berries, like whatever meme you want to go with. Like, it's just a thing you can point at and go, oh, I remember that thing from the thing. It doesn't do or mean anything in the context of his character, and that's genuinely kind of baffling. And that sort of points to me to what I feel is the main problem with this update, is that it's doing the classic Riot Games thing of trying to have its cake and eat it too, right? It's at once trying to completely replace and supplant old Viktor, but it's also trying to be like, no, it's still like, it's old Viktor, it's still kind of, like, it's not, we haven't taken him completely away. It's like, it's got the third arm, right? And, like, unlike the version of him we see in Arcane, is like, he's still got kind of hair, and like he doesn't have the same, like, all of the, he's a little bit like the Viktor that, you know, from the old video game, right? So it's like, we haven't completely taken him away, and that to me is like, why not? Why not? This is a completely different character. Why not go all in? Why not actually commit to fully redesigning his character then? Why not fully commit and, like, do something instead of the third arm, do something that actually resonates with the disability problems that his character has had throughout the story? Like, that this is sort of an attempt by him, maybe subconsciously, to fix himself? Then he should do something that is meant to fix himself, like replace his legs with tank treads. I don't know. Like, whatever it may be, whatever in Viktor's head is a solution to his imperfection, do that. instead of third arm for no reason, except, like, what's the point of the third arm? Is it so that he doesn't have to lift his left arm to fire lasers out of that one instead? What's the point of it? What's it for? The answer seems to be nothing, right? And this is, like, really my main problem with this Viktor rework, is, like, if you were gonna do it completely. Like, go all in. Commit to that shit 100%. If you're gonna throw out the old character so completely, if you're gonna say, no, that old character sucks, we believe that this new version is better, straight up better, we believe that it is better for the game, better for the character, that he reflects the version that exists in Arcane, then do that. Do that. Commit to it. And believe in it, instead of doing these little waffles, like, sort of throwing bones and saying, like, oh, well, you know, it's like, we don't want to completely replace him. Why not? Why do all of this if you don't want to completely replace him? I don't get it. I think it's weird. I think it's weak, design-wise. Having said all of this, I think new Viktor is a better character design than old Viktor. Old Viktor, I've never liked his character design that much. I think the third arm especially is kind of silly, in a way that feels a little dumb. Like, old Viktor is supposed, like I said, to be this mad inventor, or depending on which version of him you're reading, he's had a few incarnations, this, like, obsessive, almost compulsive, like, hyper dedicated inventor, this slightly melancholic humanist who on some level sometimes feels bad about the things that he does and the pain that he sometimes inflicts on people and their free will that he takes away, but who's also ultimately dedicated to this vision that he has, that we can improve the human condition with science, right? Up to and including doing stuff like taking away pesky problems like free will occasionally when it's necessary and convenient. Like, we can do stuff like that. Someone who's dedicated, like, to a scientific ideal to the point that he begins to ignore or rewrite ethics in order to allow him to do the things that he wants to do, right? Someone who's like, and I think old Viktor just looks way too much like mad scientist, and that's because that's what he's designed to be. That's what Viktor was all the way back when he was, like, originally released into League of Legends. He was mad scientist with Russian accent who does mad science things with laser and throws electro bomb on ground because of glorious evolution, right? Like, sort of a little bit of that old Red Scare communist sort of vibe in over. It's like, oh, the communists are coming to turn you all American pig dog capitalists into the same, like, unified, identical worker on the glorious Soviet Revolution. Like, a little bit of that old flavor there. And it's a little bit tired. Like, it's fine for 2011, right? Like, it's fine for the era of the game where he was released into. But when they sort of later on tried to redefine him as, like, as a much more complicated, much more nuanced character, I'm sorry, this silly bullshit doesn't work for that. It looks dumb that he has this this angry, evil man, fucking skull-faced mad science mask, and then also this unkempt, like, horrible-looking hair poking out the back of it. Like, why does he keep that if, like, why does he have a skull mask in the first place? What's it for, right? That obsession with efficiency and objective improvement, like, if he was interested in objectively improving the human hand, why on earth would he take a finger away? Why wouldn't he add a second thumb? Like, that is the most obvious improvement to, like, there's an actual prosthetic you can buy right now. Like, there's 3D printing files you can download online for a extra thumb that you put on the side of your hand, which actually really does allow you to have a bunch of extra mobility in your hand and, like, allows you to hold things in, like, really intuitive and interesting ways. So why would he reduce his arm to 4 fingers then if he was obsessed with, like, efficiency? And again, if it's about disability, if we're actually tackling disability as a subject, then, like, I like the leg brace as a communication of that, but it also is like, why is that, like, why does he have this high-tech, glowing, fucking laser arm prosthetic up here, but then down here, it's something that looks like it was put together with, like, a few screws and bolts? this very simplistic, underdeveloped, under-engineered thing. Where's the over-engineering, right? Like, where's that, like, deep thought about how do we improve the human condition? How do we, like, enhance the human animal? That's really all absent, because, again, he's only really supposed to be mad scientist man, right? So I don't really like old Viktor's character design. I don't think it's very good. I don't think it expresses his story particularly. I don't think it expresses his vibe. I don't think it really works for what the character was eventually supposed to be. I think this is a much... Sans the arm, like the arm I still think is very much the weakest. As a piece of coherent character design, as an expression of the version of Viktor that exists in Arcane, this is way stronger. Like, this does way more of the storytelling for that version of Viktor, right? I think this is overall better character design than the old one was. I think it is definitely an improvement on that level. I have gone on record before saying that I don't think Arcane should be canon to League of Legends. I think Arcane should be its own thing. I think it would be really cool if the Arcane version of Viktor was just that, was an alternate version, alternate universe version of him, or whatever, that's contained in its own little bubble, that they didn't try and replace what's in League of Legends with what's in Arcane, because that causes the sheer amount of fucking canon problems. Like, what the fuck are you gonna do with Camille? What the fuck are you gonna do with Renata Glask? What the fuck are you gonna do with Zeri and Seraphine? Like, what the fuck are you gonna do with magic in this world? The world building, the lore, the history. It's a bad call to make Arcane canon. This shouldn't be the main Viktor in League of Legends, in my opinion. I think that as a structural thing is a really stupid idea that's gonna backfire horribly. Well, not even really backfire. That sounds like it's gonna be a big spectacular blow-up. It's not. It's gonna be an embarrassing wet fart that drags on for like 10 years until something else comes along to like cause Riot to overexcitedly retcon the universe and declare a new status quo. But this shouldn't be the main Viktor in game, because it's a replacement of the old character without actually filling his spot. Like I said, this version of Viktor takes kind of a lot from Malzahar, and from that particular archetype of characters. This version of Viktor isn't a scientist, he's a sorcerer. That's part of the corruption, right? Like, is that Viktor starts out as a scientist, someone who's dedicated to science, someone who's dedicated to making the world better through engineering, through solutions like that. And then the Hex Core comes along and it corrupts him. It promises him something other than science, right? It masquerades as a scientific process, but what it actually gives him is like this false magical vision of a better tomorrow, where instead of doing the hard work, we just press the evolve button and make everyone exactly the same, and boom, therefore problem solved. It's like, it's the dark side, right? Like, he's taking the easy way out. And that's kind of more Malzahar's thing. And that kind of just makes him a wizard, right? Like, in the end, he's just kind of a sorcerer. He's just kind of a wizard. He's a master of the arcane, herald of the arcane, right? That's where he ends up. So, like, this stuff that it says in the bio, the fully biomechanical evolution of his former self, no, it's fucking not. Like, I don't know what you're smoking when you're saying that, but calling this biomechanical is a crock of shit. From a design perspective, this is not biomechanical. Nothing about this looks mechanical even a little bit. The only mechanical part of him, the only part of him that really has any mechanicalness to it, is the arm, because that's the only thing that looks like it has like mechanical joints and is designed with a mechanical thing in mind. The rest of him is just biological. Like, it's not biomechanical, it's biological, but the texture is fucked up and he's got some gold bits stapled on there. There's no sense of the mechanical. There's no sense of mechanism. There's no sense of machinery. There's no sense of being a cyborg. There's no sense of integration between biological and, like, non-biological. That's just not present in this version of the character design. As indeed, it's not really present in the version of him that is in the Arcane. There is no biomechanical nothing in the Arcane version of Viktor. They got rid of that entire thing, because, again, that's part of the point. He's being corrupted by the Hex Core. He's abandoning his principles, right? So what the fuck are you talking about that this is biomechanical? Where, exactly? It's just magic. He just looks like a lich. he just looks like some kind of sorcerer. He just looks like a fucking Necron, right? Like, or not even a Necron, because like they at least look somewhat mechanical in their aspect. It's just a biological body with some metal bits on it. There's no sense of anything mechanical anywhere here. Or indeed, in like, you can argue that there's a sense of the mechanical in the puppets that he makes in Arcane, right? They do have a sense of like being artificial things, right? But again, it's not biomechanical. They just look like puppets. They just look like mannequins, right? It's not a fusion between the biological and mechanical. There's no H.R. Giger in here anywhere, right? There's no Harlan Ellison. There's no I have no mouth and I must scream. There's no like unholy fusion of metal and flesh. None of that. It's just a very biological looking sort of alien-ass body with a slightly glossy metallic-ish kind of texture a little bit on the skin, and then a bunch of metal bits grafted onto it. But there's no sense of that at all. Like, that feels like that's not what the design is. That's not what the design says at all. And surely that's the point, is that he has abandoned the biomechanical. So the design is kind of at war with the lore here that they've tried to sort of write. Because again, that's the thing with the lore. Riot are sort of trying to square the circle of integrating Arcane Viktor with the version of Viktor that they had in the main canon. And you can't do that. That doesn't work. Those things are just not compatible. So instead you have this half Malzahar kind of character, this sorcerer wizard guy with these weird concessions to the idea of cyborgism kind of a little bit that don't really interact with the rest of his character. And it's a mess. Like, it's really, really messy as a replacement for Viktor in League of Legends. Also, like, Viktor in League of Legends, I don't like the old character design that much, right? But it's still specific and unique, right? Like, Viktor is the only guy in League of Legends who's anything like this. He's the only guy who has this kind of, like, mad science thing going on, right? With the extra arm, and, like, even though it's goofy, and, like, the big electro scepter, and, like, the leg braces, and, like, all the mechanical nonsense, he's the only guy who's like this. Viktor is not the only guy who's like this in League of Legends. There are other wizards. There are other sources. Again, I cannot stress this enough. It's so much of this shit is Malzahar. And like, Arcane itself, especially in Season 1, was also very much on that train of like, it's the Void. Oh, it's the Void. Maybe it's the Void. It could be the Void. Oh, we're gonna do a lot of visual coding as though it's the Void. Like, it feels very much like Arcane itself was pointing towards that idea that they're integrating some of Malzahar's story beats with Viktor a little bit here. Like the mind corruption of the Void, right? Like the way that the Void can enter your mind and take it over and give you these false visions of a cosmic perfection that you become desperate to serve, even though it's actually, like, leads to your own destruction. And it's like, okay, now you put him in the game, and he's like just a better version of Malzahar, basically. But he's not a version of Viktor, except for these awkward little vestiges that sort of sit here without adding anything to the character. And it's like, you shouldn't have done this. You just should not have done this. Viktor needed a rework. He needed a visual update. Absolutely he did. This is so much better on every technical level, right? The animations are much, much, much nicer. Like, he has a lot more personality in a lot of the ways that he's presented. But it's just not, it's not him. Like, it's not Viktor anymore. You have taken away who Viktor was, and you've just kind of made him into something that's derivative of other things that are already in the game without making anything specific and unique. Like, he even fucking has a float animation. I'm trying to find it here. Because, like, when Viktor is floating, right, when he's floating forward, I think that's with his ultimate, it's so much more like, yeah, no, that is fucking Malzahar, motherfuckers. Like, it's This is what the Malzahar do. And I know that's not his base running animation all the time, but still, it's like come on. Come on, really? I'm spotting, by the way, some lovely smear frames. Again, all of the animation, all of the quality, all of the craft that's on display with this version of Viktor is undeniably better. Just better 100% straight up, right? No doubt in my mind, no qualifications. It is a better version of Arcane Viktor. But they've taken away the old Viktor, and they haven't replaced it with something that can occupy that same thematic space. There is no longer a transhumanist cyborg mad inventor guy who's trying to improve upon humanity with science and engineering in League of Legends. That's gone now. And that was a unique thing. That was a thing that was very specific and unique in League of Legends, and it kind of sucks that that's just gone and replaced with something that, in turn, is not nearly as unique on its own. This should not have been the main canon Viktor. It really, 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 really shouldn't. Because all it does is create problems. All it does is take away something unique and replace it with something that's an amalgamation of other things that already exist. And for what? Exactly. Like, what's the benefit exactly? That people who watched Arcane might have a slightly easier time getting into League of Legends? Woo. Hooray. More people playing League of Legends. I mean, that's what Riot cares about, I guess. Fair enough, but for a tie-in, for an attempt to capitalize off a TV series, for that you would do this? I feel like, from a perspective of artistic integrity, a character update like that should be undertaken first and foremost for the purposes of keeping the character at the highest level of quality, and not to capitalize on the success of a licensed TV show, even one as good as Arcane. Right? Yeah, the motivations for doing this are bad and dumb. The way that they've gone about trying to integrate it into main League of Legends canon are weak. The character design is not radical nearly enough to justify the full rework. It's derivative of other things that are already in the game, and it replaces something that, for all of its flaws, and I'll say it again, I think this character design is pretty bad also for what it is, but it's unique, it's special. It replaces something special, gives us something derivative, and it's like, for fuck's sake, Riot, like, this feels so cheap in some ways. Like, this feels so much like, oh my god, Arcane is popular, put the Arcane things in the game because it's popular. People like the Arcane things, put them in the game now because they're popular. And artistically, that's weak. Like, that's sellout shit, right? Like, that's, if you just immediately turn around and chase the latest success like a dog chasing cars, that's weak. Artistically speaking, that's weak. Commercially, I'm sure it's very strong. I'm sure it's going to make a lot of money, probably. I mean, I hope so. Otherwise, what's the point of this from your perspective, Riot Games Incorporated? But artistically, that's weak behavior. That is low confidence behavior. That is pandering and pathetic in a way that I don't really think is becoming of one of the world's largest IPs in the world. Like, you're not a small fucking indie company anymore. You don't have to chase these things anymore. Except you do, because line has to go up. I have another video out that talks about that. Like, it's capitalism. This feels like capitalism. This doesn't feel like something that was undertaken out of a true artistic commitment to an idea. This feels like something that was undertaken because someone who, like, runs a spreadsheet somewhere said, oh, hey, that's a way to juice the numbers. And that sucks. Like, this, if this had been a skin, I would be praising it so fucking much. I would still be criticizing the arm. I still think that's silly because I think it's silly in Arcane. But if this was a skin, a legendary skin, I'd be like, yes, fuck yes, this rules, this slaps, this is awesome. There are definitely parts of this that they should take into account and consideration when they give Viktor his real update. I would be praising this to the fucking skies because they made it main canon. because they made it a replacement, because of that, like, I sit here and I just kind of go, for fuck's sake. For fuck's sake. Like, it's just Malzahar again now. We already have Malzahar. We don't need another Malzahar. We don't need another fucking wizard. We don't need a fucking sorcerer. We need a mad science guy. We need a transhumanist cyborg prosthetics maker from Zaun who's trying to make the world better for people with mechanical inventions and who occasionally goes rather a bit too far because he's in the grips of some of his own traumas and like his own inadequacies. And like the way that interacts with someone who's like a hyper optimist, like, well, some versions of Jace. The old, like, which version of Jace is even fucking canon anymore? I think he was turned into a hyper optimist with Legends of Runeterra. Like, I do think they did that because he was an asshole for a long time, very canonically. Yeah, I don't like the Viktor update. I really don't. And it's not because the craft is bad so much as it's just because of all of the circumstances that surround it. Do I want to talk about... this fucking Jimmy Neutron ass. Prototype Viktor is kind of fine. But... why the hair like that, though? Why like that the hair is? The hair like that is why, because why? The hair looks so silly. Like, and it's slightly silly character design version of him, I guess. Like, I really don't understand why Prototype Viktor wasn't turned into an arcane skin as well. Where it's like Season 1 Viktor, where has the arm that he had in the lab with Heimerdinger, and he has his crutches or whatever instead of the staff. Like, I really don't understand why this. Again, this feels so much like, oh, but we want to preserve old Viktor, like old Viktor from the old version of the old Viktor character. Old Viktor, he's still there. We haven't replaced him completely. This feels so much like they're just taking elements of the old one in a sort of pathetic attempt to placate the Viktor mains who they know are going to be quite upset that the thing they like has been taken away from them. And again, commit then. Like, commit to the fucking bit. If you actually believe that new Viktor is genuinely superior to old Viktor, then commit to it enough that you don't do these little, oh, like, and who cares? It's a fucking 525. Well, I think did they up the price of this one? But it's an old, like, palette swap, like, fucking altered. It's a skin. Who cares? It's not an important skin. It's just one of those little things, right? Like, that sort of just reminds me of the same issue. Oh, I fucking hate that. Oh, I don't like that helmet at all. Kind of, well, maybe I'll need to take a closer look at a bunch of things about it. I like High Noon Viktor, though. I think High Noon Viktor benefited a lot. Oh yeah. Like, the new High Noon Viktor is vastly superior. Like, for the character that he's supposed to be within the High Noon universe, this is a million times better. That is a straight up vast, massive upgrade. That is way the fuck better. Because, like, High Noon Viktor is not supposed to be this jacked, right? And that body type is something that he has because his base form has all of that fucking armor on, right? So for the skin, they kind of have to. And it doesn't work with the character that he's supposed to be playing within that version, like within the High Noon universe. This is so much fucking better, it's not even funny. Maybe the jacket could stand to be a little bit more cool and elaborate. I mean, they're just copying what it was from the old skin, but like, I feel like there's some opportunities there to make the fashion a little bit more elaborate to match the High Noon universe. Maybe a little bit more black leather rather than the sort of grayscale stuff, but like, what a better version of that specific version of Viktor. And then there's Arcane Savior Viktor, where the hand just is even weirder now in a lot of ways because, like, that never shows up in the... what is that? Like, I I would have assumed, like, it's a little weird with this thing because they're sort of doing Spectral Realm Viktor, right? Like, they're doing Viktor inside of the Arcane, right? Like, when he's floating around being like a glowy magic angel creature or whatever in there, right? They're kind of doing that, but then they're also not doing that at all because he isn't that bright white glowing angel creature from inside of the... He's sort of halfway between that and the prophet version of him that's walking around in the actual commune down there. And again, this sort of going half and half, having your cake and eating it too ass thing is, for me, it's really kind of biting it a little bit, because it's like, well, hang on, so which version of Viktor is this? Like, where and how is this version of him in... how am I supposed to read this? Because he's dressed like a Greek god. And, like, a bunch of the gold and stuff also sort of implies this divinity. But then there's this, like, sort of zombification, like, almost like, oh my god, he's being torn apart. It's actually a front, and he's, like, actually a horrible monster underneath. Or what? Like, how... I don't really understand how I'm supposed to read this. Because, like, that's not what he looks like in the show. At any point, not even in the Celestial Realm, he doesn't look like that. If you wanted to do Celestial Realm Viktor, you could just give him a white body with a bunch of glow effects on it. Like, that's a thing you could have done. So again, I don't really understand why this weird amalgamated halfway point as the version of Viktor that you're going with for this. It's not bad. Like, this isn't a bad skin. It's a perfectly reasonably okay design. I don't really know about the silhouette that much, but like, it's like fine for what it is. It's just I don't understand why not choose, if you want to bring Arcane Viktor from the Arcane show into League of Legends, why not do that instead of making a sort of weird alternate fan art version of him that doesn't actually exist in the show? Because that's what this is. This is a version of Viktor that doesn't exist anywhere within Arcane. So how is this an Arcane skin? When it's not... Like, I guess it's like, oh, we're taking a creative liberty. Why? Why are you taking creative liberty now? You were so obsessed with, like, giving Arcane primacy over who and what Viktor is. Like, for this one, you're so like, fucking Arcane, yes, bring all of the Arcane stuff, like as much Arcane stuff as we can possibly stuff in there, because Arcane is better, the Arcane version is better, the Arcane version is better. And then we get to this bit and it's like, yeah, we don't want to do the Arcane version. Nah, like, we'll make up our own thing, like the whatever, the Arcane thing is good, fine for television, but we don't want to put it in the game. Make up your minds, because like, I thought that the fucking like commune Viktor design with like the black body and like the blue cloth that he has swaddled himself in that Jace gave him, which is like this signifier still of a certain connection between them. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was pretty interesting as a piece of character design and as a version of Viktor, as a midpoint, like a point when he's still holding on to his humanity. I thought that was pretty cool as a piece of character design, as a piece of, like, storytelling. This, on the other hand, doesn't tell me jack fucking squat shit about who Viktor is in Arcane, because he never shows up like this in Arcane. He never has a floating ghost hand in Arcane. So what is this? Which version is this? Is that supposed to be Sky's hand, by the way? Like, I don't fucking know. I can't tell if that's what it's supposed to be. It's, yeah... I really don't know what to do with Arcane Viktor. It's like, in so many ways, it's better. In so many ways, it's a much better piece of craft. It's a much better piece of character design as an expression of the version of him that's in Arcane. And then there's all these weird... Like the robot arm, which is only there because Viktor's thing is the robot arm. Not because it's the right thing for the character, but because it's what it's always been, and therefore it has to be that always. This weird conservatism that finds its way into something that's otherwise so radical for no apparent reason. Yeah, I have mixed feelings. Much in the way that I have kind of mixed feelings about Arcane. Because, like, it feels really weird to see them go so hard and yet back off so timidly. at the same time. And it's that thing of like trying to please everyone, right? And you end up pleasing no one. It's a problem that Riot has had before, that it has this excessive willingness to put imaginary fan feedback above actual creative process. And it's something they've done before, where they do these things in anticipation of, oh, well, the fans won't like that, or the fans will like that. That sort of ends up compromising the product, and then becomes the focus of a lot of complaints from fans, because it's like, when you half-ass something, people can tell that parts of it are half-assed. Like that's how I feel anyway, right? Yeah. I don't know. I still don't know how the fuck I'm gonna review Arcane Season 2. Like, the idea I have in my head is I'll do one video that's all the positives, and I'll just gush, and I'll just be positive, and I'll just glaze the show, and I'll just give it a fucking hand job the whole time, and just be happy, and enjoy all of the wonderful things, and I won't let the doubts seep in, and I won't let... And then I'll do another video, which is all the shit parts, right? All of the parts that annoy me, that upset me, that I think are bad, the creative decisions and choices that I just don't think make any fucking sense, and then we'll sort of confine that all to its own video, so we can have the positivity without being tainted by the cynicism, and we can have the cynicism without me sitting there and going, but there's also parts I like. Like, I don't know. I have mixed feelings. My feelings are mixed. And I will also say, this is not like a review of Viktor's new character design. Like, this is not, like, if I were to do a main channel video about it, I would have something better to say than just like, I don't know, I have mixed feelings, it's good, it's bad, blah, blah, blah. But that's what you get on the reaction channel. And I don't think you're going to get a full review video over on the main channel either. Just so as you know. Doubtful. Unless I change my mind because of ADHD. That's been known to happen. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of all I have on Arcane Viktor. Which means now I have to go to my merch store and show you the merch that I have on my merch store, and tell you that if you want some of it, you can buy it with money that you maybe have in your bank accounts, and then you can give that money to me. Well, some of it, like most of the money goes to the actual production of the thing. I earn about $10 on a hoodie sale. Well, no, actually I don't, because there's a discount on, and the discount comes out of my cut, so I earn less than $10 on a hoodie sale. And substantially less on the smaller things. So, but if you want one of these things that has the stuff on them, and then you want to put that on your body, and then also I get some money out of that, please do it. Like, I'm not trying to discourage you from buying merchandise. I'm just a very bad salesman. I would rather sell merchandise than do sponsorships, right? Like, that's sort of the thing. So you can do that if you want to. You don't have to, particularly. This is just like, if some of this seems cool and you wanna have it, please go and have it. But if you don't want to, that's fine. I mean, it's again, I'm such a fucking bad salesman, because like, it's not fine. I kind of need to sell this stuff. Like, not in the sense, it hasn't cost me a bunch of money to produce it. Well, it has. Like, some of the designs were actually kind of expensive. But like, it's not. I do need to sell it, and I do believe it's good. I genuinely do. I genuinely I genuinely believe a bunch of these things are really cool and good, and that you would enjoy having them. I really like the hoodie. I have this hoodie, and I wear it all the time because it's so super comfy and nice. And I've just ordered like a bunch of the Umbra merch, like especially like the fucking backprint hoodie here. I've had my eye, ever since I designed it, I was like, fuck, I need this on my body. So they're good. I truly do genuinely 100% believe in them, that they're good and that they're worth your money and they're worth having. But also, you don't need to. Like, there are probably more important things in the world for you to spend your money on right now. So please don't feel pressured to do it, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. It's 2 p.m. I have not slept since... when did I wake up? I woke up at 4 p.m. yesterday? Yeah. And I've been kind of doing this video as a way to push my sleep schedule further so I can return it back to something normal, because I've actually got a appointment at the barber tomorrow to get this fucking mess of a... Well, you can't see it, but my beard is a bit of a mess right now. So, I'm a bit all over the... Is anyone still watching it at this point? If you're still watching it at this point, put some kind of emote in your comment down below. Something weird. It's like a clown. I don't know. Maybe not a clown. That seems like you're insulting me. Cat? I don't know. Put a funny emoji in your comment if you're still watching at this point for some reason. As I sit here and I'm just going to end the video.